It's the Brian Lehrer Show on WNYC. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Matt Katz, reporter in the WNYC and Gothamist newsroom, filling in for Brian today. Our final segment is a continuation of our WNYC Centennial series called 100 Years of 100 Things. I scream, you scream, we all scream. For number 10 on our list, ice cream. Maybe rainy today, but New York has been sweltering hot. So what better time to learn about everyone's favorite frozen treat? Joining us today to give us the scoop, on the history of ice cream is Laura Weiss, journalist and author of Ice Cream, A Global History. Laura is a lactose-intolerant ice cream expert. Hi, Laura. Welcome to WNYC.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
And listeners, let's talk about ice cream. Do you have fond memories of Fudgy the Whale cakes, Mr. Softy trucks, or Jan's in Jackson Heights? Let's hear your history with New York ice cream. Have you scooped ice cream, or did you or your family have an ice cream parlor? Want to shout out a favorite flavor that's fallen out of favor, or a new find for the next century? Give us a call, 212-433-WNYC. You can also text us at that number, 212-433-9692. Okay, Laura, so the history of ice cream, specifically in New York, give us some context. What's the origin story there?
Okay, well, the origin story actually goes back to ancient China, where the Chinese emperors had made, for their delight, goat or buffalo milk ice cream that was flavored with camphor and additionally had dragon eyeballs incorporated into it. Not sure what that tasted like. And then the Greeks and Romans flavored ice with juice and with wine. So we had the first sorbet. Then fast forward to around 1700 in Italy, where chefs to the nobility were experimenting with sorbet. And one of them, named Latini, added cream and said, or must have said, wow, this tastes great. And that was really the official launch of ice cream as we know it. And then ice cream arrived in America very early. And as we segue into New York, Wall Street was a hotbed of ice cream shops. You can go back and look at old newspapers and look at ads of some of these confectioners who sold candy alongside ice cream.
And this is when the hokey pokey carts come into play?
Well, this was earlier. This was around the time of the Revolution. Okay. And one sort of famous tale about that time is New York, as people probably know, was briefly the capital of the United States. And George Washington spent, I mean, the figures vary, but somewhere around a couple of $100 in one summer on ice cream. So he was our first presidential ice cream fan.
Right.
And at this point, ice cream was pretty much a treat for the wealthy. Sugar was extremely expensive, so expensive and so difficult to obtain that it was locked up in a special sugar safe. But if you fast forward to the 19th century, around, I would say 1840 or so, there was an influx of Italian immigrants, and they started selling ice cream on the street. These vendors were called hokey pokeys. It was mostly men. I'm sure there were a few women mixed into that. And the term hokey pokey, nobody really knows what the derivation of it is. Some say it was a mispronunciation of hocus pocus. Some say it was, an English interpretation of the Italian phrase "o che poco" or "oh so little." But these vendors, they spread like wildfire. And they continued to sell ice cream on the street until probably at least the beginning of the 20th century. And it's possible they sold it later than that. And they were the forerunners of Mr. Softy, basically.
Yeah.
Except you literally took your life in your hands if you ate their ice cream.
Why is that?
Well, this was way before, the Pure Food Act, which was passed in 1906. And the ice cream itself was, not necessarily very sanitary. Plus, you would go up to your local ice cream seller and ask for a hokey pokey, and the seller would put some ice cream in a dish and you'd eat it. And then the seller would put ice cream in the dish for the next person who was, let's say, me, and I would eat it. So the passing of germs must have been phenomenal. And newspapers and public health departments went wild about the issue of contamination. And in fact, people got very sick and people even died.
Wow.
This is the underside of ice cream people don't know about.
Yeah.
And so, but people love these vendors. And this was the first time that ice cream was affordable. It would cost about a penny and it was accessible to children. This was also a new trend. So it was basically impossible to shut these vendors down. They were just too prolific and too popular.
And you said it was the hokey pokey carts, these vendors became a forerunner of Mr. Softy. When did we start hearing Mr. Softy coming down the street?
Well, that took a little while. Mr. Softy was, I believe Mr. Softy began in Philadelphia. I don't know, in the 60s or 70s. I can't quite remember, but way before Mr. Softy, there were mobilized ice cream trucks, Good Humor being among the most famous. And that launched in the beginning of the 20th century, really around 1920. And the man who started the Good Humor purposely painted his trucks white and had white uniforms for his drivers. And the reason was to communicate that his ice cream was pure and would not make you sick. So Good Humor trucks were everywhere, especially in the 50s and 60s, and then they started to die out. And meanwhile, companies like Mr. Softy got a start. And now, I just bought ice cream a couple of weeks ago from a truck near Central Park. It wasn't Mr. Softy, it was just some random truck. So ice cream trucks are everywhere.
We have callers with their own New York ice cream memories who are calling in. Let's see, who do we want to go to? Lisa in Manhattan. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thanks for calling in.
I am so excited that you mentioned Jan's in Jackson Heights. I have a story I tell my kids about Jan's in Jackson Heights. I was in fourth grade. My boyfriend was in fourth grade. He took me to Jan's on 37th Avenue. It was a big deal. We sat down, we had ice cream, the waiter came over. He said to us, we're both smiling. We both have braces. He said to us, do you make sparks when you kiss? We were in fourth grade. I died. You can't imagine how this felt. I was so embarrassed, so exposed. How did he know I kissed? I was like, I couldn't. To this day, I'm shaking. I'm 75 years old.
Oh, my goodness.
This was like the most embarrassing sex story I ever told. Anyway, I love the ice cream, the kitchen sink, the whole Jan's experience. It's ice cream. I love ice cream. I'm a chocolate person, not a vanilla person. And when we used to go to, which one was it?
Thank you.
Howard Johnson's.
Oh,
My
yeah.
dad would go up to the counter and say to the guy, what was it, 31 flavors? He would go, what kind of ice cream do you have today?
Thank you so much for calling in and taking us down memory lane. Laura, do you know about Jan's, I imagine? Can you?
I do.
Yeah.
I actually grew up in Rockville Center on Long Island, and I have very vague memories of Jan's because I was pretty little, or maybe somebody told me about it. But yes, the kitchen sink was famous. It was a combination of many flavors of ice cream, many sauces, cherry on top, whipped cream, and people would have them for birthdays. So you'd have your birthday party at Jan's, and everyone would gather around with their spoons and dig into into this dish. And I hope they still have it. I'm going to have to go to Jackson Heights.
Yeah, for sure.
And see if they still have the kitchen sink.
We're getting shout outs over text for Schraff's and the Carl Drudge brand and Days in Ocean Grove. People are really remembering their favorite spots. Wellington in Brooklyn. Hi, Wellington. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Sure.
It's a pleasure.
What's your story about ice cream?
So I'm Brazilian. We grew up eating childhood favorites, which was fresh corn ice cream pop, which was sweet corn blended with cream and sugar, and they served it in a pop, and the famous Romeo and Juliet, which was cheese ice cream mixed with guava ice cream, which was like a childhood staple on the table. You'd eat cheese and guava with bread. And that's my story. You know, I just grew up eating those, and really hard to find it out here, except like in Newark, New Jersey, and maybe certain parts of Queens. I just can't remember the place right now.
Cool. Thanks for telling us about those unique flavors. Really appreciate it. Laura, we only have a couple minutes left, and I want to hear the story about Carvel, which I did not know was created in Westchester.
Yes, it was created in Westchester, and the story goes that that Mr. Carvel was driving his truck around on a very hot day, and he got a flat tire, and the ice cream melted, and people somehow or other sampled this ice cream, and they loved it, and so he created this soft serve business. But I do want to say that as notable as Carvel is, and I love Carvel, and my father loved Carvel, we would go together to get chocolate cones. And I just adored Carvel. And there may be one opening near me, and I'm very excited. I just wish they would open. They were not the first. The Core brothers were the first. They to manufacture soft ice cream. They came up with an elaborate machine. They took it to Coney Island. This was in, I believe, 1919. And on that very first weekend, they sold 18,000 cones. 18,000 cones.
Wow.
And they charged a nickel a piece. So it was a pretty good deal.
Wow.
And then later, they decided that the formula for the ice cream made it too runny, so they added eggs. So that's how you get the custard version of soft serve, which is very popular, I think, on the Jersey Shore and other places.
Laura, we want to know your favorite flavor and your favorite spot before I let you go.
Okay, my favorite flavor is chocolate.
Great.
And my favorite spot is whatever ice cream shop I'm near.
So you are impartial. You'll take whatever ice cream, the random truck by Central Park, whatever.
That's right. It has to have vegan ice cream, which is now fantastic.
Tastes the
same? It wasn't for a long time. I'm sorry?
It tastes just the same? The vegan ice cream?
Not quite.
Okay.
Not quite. But one of the most important parts of ice cream is what's called mouthfeel. It has to have that ice cream mouthfeel. And people these days, ice cream producers these days, are getting very close to creating in vegan ice cream the same mouthfeel that you get with regular dairy-based ice cream.
Awesome. My guest has been Laura Weiss, journalist and author of Ice Cream, A Global History. Laura, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing your stories about ice cream.
My pleasure.
I'm Matt Katz, and this is The Brian Lehrer Show. Thanks for listening, everybody. Go get some ice cream and stay tuned for all of it.